have sustained an impressive editorial career in general, but specifically you've fostered the development of Asian Theater Journal over 3 decades, if I have that right. How do you articulate the role of an editor?
Editing is very much like teaching, but instead of doing it at an institutional level, you're dealing with people all over the world and engaging with them in the process of figuring out how to take their research, which often is in a rough form when you get the first draft, and make it understandable to an audience that is much wider and less specifically focused on that geographic area. You're also thinking institutionally about the careers of those individuals as various countries move into our academic frame or things like that. So you're thinking, okay, these are the graduate students. What do you do for them? The associate professors, the full professors. And you're trying to guide them toward methodologies of communicating that to the specific audience who normally reads the journal, but also through the internet to the much wider audience that in times to come might need access to some of that information.
What are your editorial touchstones?
Touchstones, the thing that I look for is good research, things like that. What is new about this material? And when it has that, you can cut, help people reorganize, other things to make those new contributions of their work much more apparent. Beginning students or graduate students usually think that it's a yes and no. For Asian Theater Journal, that's not the process. The process is there real research and new material in here? And then the other part is just a writing problem, which is the educational thing.
Your editorial role has changed throughout Asian Theater Journal's lifespan. In your final letter from the editor, you state, "A journal I now know is more than the publisher parish lifeboat that I imagined as a graduate student." Will you elaborate on how your conception of editorial work has changed over time?
What is happening in our field? What do we need? What is the new contribution that perhaps is implied within this article? Most of our things are not outright rejections, unless, it's plagiarism or there is absolutely no real thought or research there. Most of our things go through a process of 2 or 3 revisions, which are both about organization and realizing what might be of interest to the wider field. People are so stuck in their own research and have expectations that people know everything about what was going on in Republican China or what was the situation in 1970 in Thailand. And if that is not contextualized, only the Thai specialist or the Qing Dynasty specialists will be able to see how important this is. So it takes a process of writing to clarify what the research findings are and make them accessible to a wider audience. Perhaps when I was just a reviewer in my younger phase, I was more harsh because perhaps I'd gotten harsh comments in my thing. But because we grow out of a focus group, it's both to serve that focus groups, to help our membership get their information out, get their jobs, get their promotions, figure out how to build from these building blocks the books or larger projects that they will. So, over time you see it within a larger structure of the individual's development rather than just give them some comments and say you're good or bad.
Your career is unlike many others in that you've really been focused on such a specific field and you've given it decades of sustained attention. So can you tell me about the unique value of such prolonged attention on a specific topic?
It's not a very specific topic when you have 2 billion people and thousands of years. It is actually much broader than anything to do with American theater or are contemporary, and it has all the same dimensions. You have Me Too movements that are going on in Korea, in India. You have all of the indigenous rights, environmental issues. So everything that's going on here is going on multiplied by many, many more countries. The difficulty, I think, in being an editor is, of course, I don't have expertise in all of those areas. So I need good area editors who can check the knowledge that is in there and have these people really interviewed or seen the right kind of productions or things like that. But given that, you know, once it's through, it's just a problem of seeing if that person can organize, write in English, because many of our writers are from Iran or Turkey or Syria or China. We have loads from China, things like that. So I depend a lot on the associate editors who have real geographical and historical experience. But from our perspective, it's the American and the European theater, which is a piece of cake. We all know that. And many of these people also know that. But what they don't know, and how can they communicate to those people who really, because they get a job in Hong Kong, want to know about Hong Kong theater, and it's how can they fill in enough that that reader can have access to the nitty-gritty of what is going on in contemporary PRC Hong Kong politics without having to do the whole larger history.
In a video about Wangle, you reference a quotation that ends the performance, which I found quite lovely. The flower has been plucked, may its fragrance spread. Would you mind sharing how Wangle has spread its fragrance throughout your career?
When I was a student, I hitchhiked overland to India and spent about 6 months traveling around on railroads. At the time, I was part of a Canadian troupe and had been Lecoq trained and things like that, and was astonished to see that the kind of theater that we were talking about creating, that was actor-centered, improvised, involved music, dance, movement. It was alive and well and living in other parts of the world. You know, then it was the Cold War, so you could get money to study about Southeast Asia. I didn't know it was just because it was the Cold War, but there I was, and I had gotten a grant from Sam Scripps. Scripps newspaper was interested in Southeast Asia, and I said, I'll go out and join the circus, which is joining a puppet troupe where you travel day and night. I was bored with being in libraries and reading texts all the time, and so I was involved with thousands of people and became a rock star in the middle of the clown scenes and a very living theater of improvised, mass puppet performance. I mean, if I look at the Asian Association for Asian Performance, it was formulated at the moment then that the American Theater Association, the predecessor of ATHE, was collapsing. And it was unclear what was coming up again. So it was people from different parts of Asian theater studies who had been part of a focus group coming together and saying, okay, we have been valuable to each other in sharing our work and learning, how can we keep on going? And at that point, Jim Brandon created this journal that was actually something that we had done as graduate students, just to inform ourselves before we were going out for field study, was the first iteration of this. So it was a grad student project that was taken up, turned into a publishing project, taken on by that particular group. And it's very heartening to see all of these people who you published as emerging scholars and made them sweat to redefine very long chapters into condensed and digestible form, to see them becoming the editors, becoming the people who are fostering the next generation. So it's just a process. just education. And the next group carries on.